I'm in active labor, water broke, contractions 5 minutes apart, and my husband, the man who promised to love me through everything, looks me dead in the eye and says, "Get out. Nicole's coming over." Yeah, his mistress. He had no idea I'd just inherited $500 million. Big mistake. Hey everyone, before we get into how I made him regret every single choice, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Trust me, you don't want to miss the part where he shows up begging on my doorstep, and drop a comment telling me how you would have handled this mess. Now, let's get into it. My name is Angela Brooks, and 7 years ago, I thought I was marrying my forever. Terrence Brooks was everything I thought I wanted. Successful real estate developer, drove a nice car, knew how to dress, and when he proposed to me at that restaurant in downtown Atlanta, I swear I felt like the luckiest woman alive. We had the big wedding, bought the house in the suburbs, posted our happy couple pictures on Instagram like everybody else. From the outside, we looked perfect. But y'all know how it goes. What looks good on the surface isn't always what's happening behind closed doors. The late nights started about 3 years in. "Baby, I got a big deal closing. I'll be home late." Or, "The clients want to meet for dinner, you know how it is." And stupid me, I believed him. I trusted him. I was working full-time at a nonprofit, running programs for underprivileged kids, and I thought we were building something together. I thought we were a team. Then I got pregnant. We'd been trying for a while, and when I saw those 2 lines on that test, I cried happy tears. I called Terrence at work and he sounded excited. He told everybody, his boys, his mama, his coworkers. For a minute there, I thought maybe this baby would bring us closer. Maybe he'd stop with the late nights and the distance I'd been feeling. But it got worse. The comments started. "You sure you need that second plate, Angela? Maybe you should skip dessert, you're getting big enough. I'm over here growing his child and he's worried about my weight." His mama Diane didn't help either. Every time she came over, it was something. "Terrence works so hard, Angela. You need to make sure you're keeping yourself up." Keeping myself up? I'm 7, 8 months pregnant, working full-time, cooking, cleaning, and this man can't even come home for dinner. My best friend Candace kept telling me something wasn't right. "Girl, I'm just saying, watch him. Something's off." But I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to be that woman, the suspicious wife going through phones and checking receipts. So I ignored the perfume smell on his shirts. I ignored the lipstick stain I found on his collar that one time. I ignored the way he started showering as soon as he came home. I told myself I was being paranoid, that pregnancy hormones were making me crazy. Then came that night, November 15th. I will never forget that date as long as I live. I was 8.5 months pregnant, and I'd been feeling off all day. Cramping, back pain, just uncomfortable. Terrence had left that morning saying he had back-to-back showings and a business dinner. Nothing unusual. By 10 p.m., I'm sitting on the couch watching TV, and I feel it. That pop. Then warm water running down my legs. My water broke. I grabbed my phone with shaking hands and called him. It rang 4 times before he picked up. I could hear music and voices in the background. "What, Angela? I'm busy." I told him my water broke, that I needed him to come home and take me to the hospital. You know what this man said to me? "Are you sure? You're probably just peeing on yourself. The baby's not due for 2 more weeks." I'm standing there in a puddle of amniotic fluid, contractions starting to hit, and he's telling me I'm peeing on myself. I begged him. I told him this was real, that I was scared, that I needed him. He sighed like I was the biggest inconvenience in the world and said he'd be there in a bit. Angela, that bit, turned into 45 minutes. 45 minutes of me timing contractions alone, trying to breathe through the pain, throwing last-minute things into my hospital bag with shaking hands. By the time I heard his car pull up, my contractions were 7 minutes apart and I was crying. He walked in the door, and I could tell he was annoyed, didn't even ask how I was feeling, just looked at the puddle on the floor and said, "You couldn't have cleaned that up?" I'm doubled over in pain, and he's worried about the hardwood floors. I asked him to please take me to the hospital. That's when everything changed. The doorbell rang. Terrence's whole face shifted, and he got this panicked look. Before I could even process what was happening, he went to the door and opened it. In walked Nicole Preston, his business partner, the woman he'd introduced me to at company events, the woman who smiled in my face and complimented my dress at the Christmas party. She was standing in my living room at 11 p.m., wearing a tight dress and heels, looking at my husband like I wasn't even there. Then she kissed him, right in front of me. A real kiss, not a friendly peck, and he kissed her back. I stood there, contractions hitting, water literally dripping down my legs, watching my husband kiss another woman in our home. When they finally pulled apart, I found my voice. "What is going on?" Terrence didn't even look embarrassed. He looked annoyed that I was still standing there. Nicole had the nerve to smile at me, this pitying little smile like I was pathetic. Then Terrence said the words that changed my entire life. "Angela, you need to leave. Call Candace or your sister or something. Nicole and I have important business to discuss, and we need privacy." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Terrence, I'm in labor. I need to go to the hospital. Now." He rolled his eyes. Actually, rolled his eyes at me. "You're being dramatic. The baby's not coming tonight. First babies take forever, everybody knows that. Just go. We'll talk tomorrow." Nicole sat down on my couch, kicked off her heels, and asked if we had any wine. My couch, my house, my husband. And I'm the one being told to leave while I'm in active labor with his child. I looked at Terrence, really looked at him, and I didn't recognize the man standing in front of me. This wasn't the man I married. Maybe he never was. Then it got worse. His mama Diane showed up. Apparently Nicole had texted her. Diane took one look at the situation and sided with her son. Called me needy. Said I was always causing drama. Told me maybe I should give them some space and stop being so clingy. I'm standing there, pregnant with her grandchild in labor, and she's calling me clingy. Something in me just broke. Not my heart, that had already shattered. Something deeper. My spirit, maybe. I realized in that moment that I was completely alone. The man I loved, the man I'd given 7 years of my life to, didn't care if I lived or died. He cared more about his mistress's comfort than his wife and child's safety. I called Candace. I could barely get the words out through my sobs and contractions. He kicked me out. I'm in labor and he kicked me out. Candace lived 20 minutes away, but she made it in 12. She came running into that house like a hurricane, cussing everybody out, calling Terrence every name in the book. She helped me to her car, grabbed my hospital bag, and we left. As we pulled away, I looked back at my house. Through the window, I could see Nicole and Terrence on the couch together, laughing. He didn't even watch us leave. The drive to the hospital was the longest 20 minutes of my life. Contractions were coming faster, the pain was unbearable, and I couldn't stop crying. Candace held my hand at every red light, telling me I was strong, that I could do this, that she was there. My phone kept buzzing. For a second, I thought maybe it was Terrence coming to his senses. It wasn't. It was his mama, texting me that I was being selfish and ruining Terrence's night. We got to the hospital, and the nurses rushed me in. Everything happened so fast. They got me into a room, checked me, said I was already 6 centimeters dilated. The doctor told me this baby was coming soon. Candace never left my side. She held my hand through every contraction, wiped my face with a cold cloth, told me when to breathe and when to push. She did everything a husband should have done. 14 hours later, at 1:30 in the afternoon on November 16th, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, 7 pounds, 3 ounces, perfect little fingers, perfect little toes, with a head full of curly black hair. I named her Brooklyn, after the place where I felt most free on a trip I took alone years ago. When they placed her on my chest, I made her a promise. I promised her that I would never let anyone treat us the way her father had. I promised her that she would grow up knowing her worth. I promised her that we would be okay. Terrence never called, never texted, never showed up. For 2 days I sat in that hospital room with my newborn daughter, and her father couldn't even be bothered to check if we were alive. That's when I knew for sure. This marriage was over. I was done. On day 2, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally I wouldn't answer, but something told me to pick up. It was a lawyer named Harrison Cole from a firm in New York. He asked if I was Angela Marie Brooks, daughter of Robert James Thornton. I said yes. That was my father, but I hadn't seen him since I was 12. He'd left my mama and me and moved away, and I'd built a whole life pretending I didn't care that he abandoned us. Mr. Cole told me my father had passed away 3 weeks ago. He'd been sick for a while. Then he said something that made the whole room spin. My father had made his fortune as an early investor in tech companies. Quiet money, the kind nobody knows about, and he'd left everything to me. His entire estate, $500 million. I'm sitting there in a hospital gown holding my 2-day-old baby, and this lawyer is telling me I'm worth $500 million. I asked him to repeat it. He did. $500 million. Plus a letter my father had written, apologizing for being absent, explaining that he'd stayed away because he thought I was better off without him, but that he'd always loved me and always kept track of me from a distance. Candace was in the room when I got that call. When I hung up, I just stared at her. She asked what was wrong, if somebody died. I told her somebody died and left me $500 million. She screamed so loud that 3 nurses came running in, thinking something was wrong with the baby. We had to explain that everything was fine. We were just in shock. That's an understatement. I was in complete disbelief. But then something clicked in my brain. A clarity I'd never felt before. Terrence had no idea. He thought I was broke, dependent on him, that I'd have to beg him for child support and struggle as a single mother. He kicked me out thinking I had nothing and no one, and now I had more money than he'd ever see in 10 lifetimes. The power shift was unreal. I didn't tell him. I didn't tell anyone except Candace. From that hospital room, I started making moves. I called the best divorce attorney in Atlanta, Beverly Thompson, the kind of lawyer that costs $1,000 an hour. I hired a private investigator to dig into Terrence's life. I opened new bank accounts that Terrence knew nothing about. I took pictures of every financial document I had access to from our marriage. I started building my case. When I got home 3 days later, I took an Uber, pulled up to my own house with my newborn baby in a car seat, and Terrence was there. He looked surprised to see us. Actually said, "Oh, you had the baby. That's nice. Boy or girl?" Like I'd been to the grocery store, not the hospital giving birth to his child. I told him we had a daughter. He nodded, looked at his phone, and said, "Cool." He didn't ask to hold her. Didn't ask her name. Didn't ask if we were okay. Just went back to scrolling through Instagram. I played it calm. Didn't argue, didn't cry, didn't confront him. I just took Brooklyn upstairs to the nursery I'd set up by myself and closed the door. Over the next week, the private investigator sent me his report. Terrence and Nicole had been having an affair for 2 years. 2 whole years. They'd been stealing money from their business, funneling it into secret accounts. They were planning to push me out of the house after the baby was born, divorce me, and leave me with nothing. And here's the kicker. Nicole was pregnant too, 3 months along. Terrence had told her he was leaving me and that they'd be a family. I met with Beverly, my attorney, and we planned everything. The divorce papers were served to Terrence at his office in front of all his clients and colleagues. I froze our joint bank accounts. I made sure every piece of evidence was documented. Text messages, photos, financial records, everything. Then I did something that felt so good. I bought out his portion of our house. He had no idea where I got the money, and I wasn't telling. When he came home that night, he was furious, screaming about how I couldn't divorce him, how I had nothing, how he'd take Brooklyn from me. I just sat there feeding my baby, calm as could be. I didn't engage, didn't argue, just let him rant and rave until he stormed out to Nicole's apartment. That's when I smiled for the first time in weeks. The divorce proceedings started, and Terrence was so confident. He thought he'd walk in, get half of nothing, maybe have to pay a little child support, and move on with Nicole. But Beverly came with a binder 3 inches thick. Evidence of infidelity, abandonment, financial fraud, everything. The judge took one look at the case and awarded me full custody of Brooklyn. Terrence would pay child support. I got the house, the cars, everything. His lawyer looked sick. After court, Terrence's lawyer must have heard rumors because a few days later, Terrence started digging into my finances. He found out through a business contact that I'd come into money. A lot of money. When he realized it was $500 million, when he did the math and figured out that he could have had half of it if he'd just been a decent human being, he lost his mind. 3 months after Brooklyn was born, he showed up at my house. Well, my house, not his anymore. He was on his knees on my front porch, literally begging, saying he made a mistake, that he was confused, that we could work it out, that Brooklyn needed her father, that he loved me. I stood there holding my daughter, looking down at this man who had kicked me out in labor, and I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just peace. I told him the truth. You love me? You kicked me out in labor. You chose your mistress over your child's birth. You didn't call to see if we were alive. Brooklyn doesn't need you. She needs a father. You're just a DNA donor. And that money you're really here about? You'll never see a penny. Then I closed the door in his face. My Ring doorbell caught the whole thing. Candace may or may not have leaked that video, and it went viral. The whole city saw him begging. Terrence ended up marrying Nicole. She left him 6 months later when the money ran out. Last I heard, he's struggling to keep his business afloat, barely making his child support payments, and has supervised visitation with Brooklyn once a month that he rarely uses. His mama Diane tried to reach out to me, wanting to be in Brooklyn's life. I politely declined. Some bridges once burned should stay burned. As for me, I'm thriving. I started a foundation for single mothers, helping women who are going through what I went through. I've helped thousands of women get back on their feet, find housing, get legal help, start businesses. Brooklyn is 2 years old now, happy, healthy, and surrounded by love. I'm dating again, taking my time, and I've never been happier. The money didn't change my life. Self-respect did. That night, Terrence kicked me out. He didn't just lose me, he lost his entire future. And the craziest part? I would have shared everything with him if he'd just been there, but he showed me exactly who he was, and I believed him. So that's my story. If you made it this far, drop a comment and tell me, do you think he got what he deserved, or should I have given him a second chance? And if this story taught you anything, it's that your worth isn't determined by someone else's ability to see it. Subscribe for more real-life stories that'll make your jaw drop. Hit that like button if this resonated with you. And remember, what goes around comes back around. I'm living proof. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.